I've got a kick drum cheat code for you today. Add this one thing to your drum recording setup and never suffer from weak, wimpy kick drums ever again. This features an inexpensive secret weapon that I almost forgot I owned. It was sitting in a box in my attic. I used this on a recent recording session for my band here in my home studio, and it made the kick drum sound huge without me having to do anything. And stick around until the end of the video because I've got a strategy you can use on your drum mixes, even if you don't record drums or if you're mixing drums that someone else recorded. Before we dive in, you might be thinking, I don't record real drums. Real drums aren't for me. It's true. Recording drums, that's not for everyone. But if you have a sneaky suspicion that you would love recording drums, real drums in your studio, you are correct. It is so much fun. It requires a lot to get started. Microphones, stands, cables, maybe a new interface with enough inputs to record them all. But once you buy all those things, you only have to buy them once, and then you can use them to record drums for the rest of your life. So if you're even just thinking you might want to go that direction, I encourage it. It's a blast. All right, so what's the 10-second secret to huge drum sounds? This. What in the world is this? Believe it or not, this is a microphone. It's called a subkick microphone. This specific one is by a company called Solomon Microphones. It's called the Low Freak. I'll link to it in the description. But this is how I recorded my kick drum. So the story of the subkick, as I recall, it was originally developed by Yamaha, and they called it the subkick. It's now discontinued, and other manufacturers make versions of it. But if you think, hey, Joe, that looks like a speaker. Yeah, it does. The story goes that someone in a studio somewhere with too much time on their hands took a speaker, like a Yamaha NS10 maybe, and wired it kind of in reverse so that it would, instead of producing sound, it would receive sound. It would capture sound. Because, in case you didn't know, speakers and microphones are kind of just opposites of each other. Kind of. So they wired it a certain way, connected it to an XLR cable, plugged it into a microphone preamp, and the subkick was born. The idea here is, since it's only this big surface area, this is like, typical like woofer size on a studio monitor, it's only picking up low frequencies. It's not picking up the full range of frequencies. Let me show you what it sounds like. This is a song called All Again by my band Stare Down. We just released it this month. And we recorded the drums, we recorded everything here in my studio. Really recorded everything in a day, which is just wild to me. But here's what the drum mix sounds like. But specifically, you're here to focus in on these two tracks at the top. The first is a kick mic. The second is called subkick. The idea here is simple. When you record a kick drum with a single microphone, it's a valid way to work. I've done it before. But you sometimes run into the problem of it's trying to achieve really two different sounds out of one microphone. The two sounds are the big low end, the big chest thumping sound of a kick drum, but also the snappy top end of the kick drum. That's hard to get with one microphone. Not impossible, but it can become challenging, especially later on in the mix where you think, oh, I want a little more snap out of this, but you didn't quite capture it right. Or you think, oh, I wish there was more low end. I got plenty of snap, but not a lot of low end. What's a girl to do? So the subkick exists to solve that problem. So instead of having one microphone capture both of those things well, you can have two microphones. One is, the goal is to just capture the clicky sound, the attack of the kick drum, the snap of it, and then the other is to capture the woof of it. So if a kick drum says boom, you've got one mic for the b and the other mic for the and that works out really well. Now, there's one way that a lot of people do this, and I've done this before, where you use two microphones on the kick drum, two regular microphones. So one kind of in the hole, pointed at the beater head, and then another one out from the kick drum that's picking up the entire sound of the kick. That can work really well. The outer one gets the lower frequencies better. The problem there is that outer microphone is typically picking up everything. It gets the cymbals, it gets a lot of snare, it gets the toms. You end up having a hard time trying to get just the kick drum sound you want without all that other bleed coming into play. The subkick solves all of those problems because it only picks up the low frequencies. It really doesn't hear the cymbals at all. So I can place it right on the kick drum, and I can put the other microphone way inside the kick drum just to get the snap of the beater head, and combined together, they sound glorious. So here's what the inner microphone sounds like. I believe we used Tim's D112 for this, and the goal here was just snap, and snap was achieved. I mean, snap for days. Now, by itself, that would be terrible, right? It's a kick drum that doesn't have any low end. We could probably go boost a crap load of EQ in the low end to maybe get a little more low end out of it. But the goal of the day was to have this just capture the snap, which we did, and then to have this capture the low end. And here's what the sub kick sounds like. So when I said it doesn't hear the cymbals at all, a little bit of hyperbole there. Obviously, you hear a little bit of snare, faded, and you hear the cymbals, but it's really, I think it's like everything above like 2K is just rolled off because it literally can't pick that up, and it kind of sounds glorious. So it's just big and woofy. It's all the low end you could want. And now, when you've got those two, one channel for kick, one for sub kick, you just adjust the level of the sub kick until you've got the amount of low end that you want. You have control over both parts of that kick drum sound on independent channels. So it looks something like this. We go from the drum mix without the sub kick sounding like this to sounding like this. Let me play it for you without any plugins at all. Here are the raw drums without the sub kick, and then I'll turn the sub kick on. Joey likey. And not to put too fine a point on it, but that's just what it sounds like. So when I say it's a 10-second secret, I literally just plop the mic down in front of the kick drum, just kind of in the middle of the resonant head, out of the way of everything else, and that's it. Mission accomplished. Thumpiness present. All right, let me give you a sample of what the actual full song sounds like with the drums mixed in. How would you like to mix this song yourself? Better yet, how about I show you exactly how I mixed it right here from start to finish? That's what's waiting for you inside my VIP membership this month. Take VIP for a test drive today and get instant access to this mix, plus exclusive courses and challenges, all designed to help you create the music you were born to make, music that you're proud to share with the world. Go to homestudiocorner.com/VIP to get started today. Okay, final thing. Yes, it would be great if all our kick drums always sounded this full and thick. Honestly, the first couple versions of this mix had too much low end because of that sub kick. But let's say you received tracks from someone and the kick drum is weak, or perhaps you use virtual drums and the kick is just weak for some reason. Let me show you a trick that you can use that kind of replicates this sub kick thing without having to go back and re-record the drums. So let's go to a simple section of the song. Let's just go right here. And what we're going to do, we're going to imagine this sub kick doesn't exist. So I'm going to mute it out. We don't have it. So all we have is this weak kick drum, which just creates much sadness in our hearts. Here's the strategy. First thing you do is duplicate this thing entirely. So I'm duplicating it completely. We'll call this dupe so you're not confused. And on this second one, we're going to listen to that one by itself for a second. The next thing you do is you're going to put an EQ on it, but specifically, we're going to render the EQ'd sound. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to put an EQ here on the actual event using event effects. and I'm going to roll off all the high frequencies. Now, granted, there's not much in the way of high frequencies here anyway, but because there's some cymbal bleed typically with a kick drum, I'm going to roll all of that off. Around 200 hertz. I don't want any snare. I just want kick here. This will make sense in just a second. Once that's done, I click the render button, which turns this into a new audio file that only has that low end on it. Now, this by itself could be enough to give us some subkick-esque sounds. We could just boost it to give ourselves more low end on the kick. It's pretty good, but it's not quite deep enough. I think I want it to be a little bit deeper, less like 100 hertzy and more 50 hertzy, if that makes sense. So what we do now is we select this, go back to just listening to this one, and we pitch it down. And Studio One has this transpose feature. So if I take it down, let's say 5, it's 5 semitones, 5 half steps. What does that sound like? Better. What about 7? If I go down a full octave? Somewhere in between. Let's go 8. I'm going to normalize it to get it nice and loud. Okay, that made it sound clippy. Never mind. That's kind of interesting. So it sounds a lot like that sub kick, and if I blend this with the original kick, if we start with it down and turn it up, we've created something from nothing. So what's happening here? The original kick itself just doesn't have any low end. We could boost for days down there. There's not much down there to boost. It's just weak. But by duplicating it, rolling off the extra high end so it's only hearing the kick drum, then we can pitch shift it down to give it this woof woof sort of sound. The reason we roll off the highs is because if we pitch down the original file, we're going to pitch down the sound of the snare and the sound of the cymbals. So we'll get the woof woof, but we'll also get this kind of of the snare drum and this of the cymbals pitched down, which wouldn't sound as good and would potentially cause issues in the mix. By rolling off those highs first, printing that, and then pitching this down, we're really only adjusting the sub frequencies of the kick drum. We've basically done this inside our software. Now, I prefer this if you're recording up front because now I don't have to do all this extra work, but this is a good trick to have in your arsenal for after the fact if you end up having a situation where your kick drum sounds a little weak and you can't go back and re-record it. All right, that's it for this video. If you want more from me on how to mix drums, I got a simple technique that you'll love. Check out this video. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.